The film begins with a jarring moment. A woman pleads for mercy, her voice trembling as she begs someone to stop hurting her. It sets the tone for a tense and emotionally charged narrative that unfolds around two central characters, Freda Maxwell, a convicted murderer recently escaped from a maximum security prison, and Drew Peterson, a seemingly innocent medical student who gets caught up in her path of chaos and survival. Freda, also known by the alias Free, is introduced as dangerous and unstable. The news reports her escape and warns the public not to approach her. She had been serving a life sentence for the murder of her father, Julius Maxwell. Meanwhile, Drew is pulled into her world seemingly by chance. He's driving when Freda forces her way into his vehicle at gunpoint, pretending to need a ride before revealing her true intentions. She takes him hostage and demands his cooperation while trying to avoid law enforcement. From the beginning, Drew presents himself as a sympathetic character. He claims to be a med student at Baylor taking care of his sick, comatose mother at home. He appears naive, nervous, and entirely unprepared for the dangerous and manipulative woman now sitting beside him. Freda, on the other hand, is hardened and confrontational, but also increasingly conflicted. Despite her violent history, there are glimpses of vulnerability beneath her defensive shell. The two arrive at Drew's house, where Freda insists they stay instead of going to a hotel. She immediately takes control, threatening him and demanding to know if there are any weapons in the house. Her paranoia and trauma manifest in violent outbursts, and although she initially doesn't plan to kill Drew, she makes it clear that any betrayal will cost him his life. Despite the tension, an odd bond begins to form between them. Drew tends to Freda's wounds and they talk about their pasts. Freda opens up about her difficult upbringing, a life where survival was the only rule. She talks about her desire to change and leave behind the violent past. Drew, ever the empathy, insists there is still good in her, that redemption is possible even for someone like her. However, cracks in Drew's story begin to appear. He claims to live with his ailing mother, who he says needs constant care. But when Freda encounters the woman in the house, things don't add up. The woman's condition and behavior suggest something darker. Freda grows suspicious. Eventually, it's revealed that Drew is not who he claimed to be. He isn't the innocent med student trying to care for his mother. In fact, the woman in the house is not his mother at all. Through a chilling confrontation, the truth surfaces. The elderly woman reveals that she and her late husband never had children. Drew had shown up months earlier under the guise of a student offering free medical checkups for the elderly. She welcomed him lonely after her husband's death. But something shifted. Drew became possessive and controlling. Eventually, he drugged her and took over her life, imprisoning her in her own home under the pretense of caregiving. Freda, who had believed herself to be the dangerous one in the house, suddenly realizes she is not the true predator here. The tables turn as she uncovers Drew's lies and the extent of his manipulation. She had walked into what she believed was her temporary safe house, but it turns out she was entering another kind of prison, one orchestrated by a sociopath hiding behind charm and intelligence. Drew eventually reveals his true nature in full. When Freda tries to outsmart him by drugging his tea with sedatives, he begins to lose consciousness but fights back. In a twisted display of psychological dominance, Drew screams that he's smarter than her, gloating that he won. But Freda doesn't back down. She fights until the very end, using every ounce of strength to survive. Meanwhile, investigators are piecing together the events. They find Freda's blood at the scene and suspect she may have had an accomplice. But as the details emerge, it becomes unclear who was really pulling the strings. Was Freda the dangerous fugitive manipulating a naive man? Or was she manipulated by someone far more calculating and disturbed? Law enforcement and media speculate. A detective who had previously been demoted follows the case closely, trying to piece together the truth. Journalists pursue leads, feeding public hysteria, painting Freda as both a villain and a potential victim. A news reporter interviews sources, pushing for clarity on whether the mysterious young man with Freda was helping her or was her hostage. As the story ends, we are left with ambiguity. Freda disappears once again and Drew's fate remains uncertain. The elderly woman survives, scarred but alive, telling her story. Authorities confirm that Freda was there and they continue to search for her. The movie challenges perceptions of good and evil, blurring the lines between victim and perpetrator. It asks whether someone with a violent past can truly change and whether redemption is ever possible. It also explores the seductive nature of control, the masks people wear, and the psychological damage caused by abuse and manipulation. The psychological complexity of both characters deepens. Freda, though feared and hunted as a murderer, is increasingly portrayed as a human being shaped by the traumas of her past. Her actions, while violent, seem rooted in a lifetime of abandonment, survival, and betrayal. Her willingness to trust Drew even briefly signals a desperate hope for something different, an escape not just from prison but from the person she has been forced to become. Drew, on the other hand, unravels into something far more sinister. His earlier facade of awkwardness and compassion gives way to a chilling display of manipulation and control. His confession to orchestrating the entire setup, including the false identity and the imprisonment of the elderly woman, reveals the extent of his deception. He weaponized kindness and trust, hiding behind his supposed medical training and soft demeanor to gain control over others. The final confrontation between Freda and Drew becomes a battle not just of survival but of identities. Freda, once feared as a monster, becomes the unexpected hero, risking her safety to confront the very kind of evil she had been accused of embodying. Drew's unraveling, both physically and mentally, serves as a disturbing reflection of hidden evil in plain sight. The investigation concludes with more questions than answers. News reports continue to speculate, detectives debate motives and connections, and the public is left wondering whether Freda was truly the villain or a victim of circumstance. The story ends on an unsettling note, with Freda once again on the run, her fate uncertain. Freda is portrayed as volatile yet deeply human. She carries the scars of her past abuse that led her to kill her father to protect her younger sister Kendall. Through flashbacks and confessions, her motive becomes understandable, even sympathetic. The court sentenced her to life, but the court never considered what she had endured. Her relationship with Drew becomes more unsettling as it's revealed he's been living under a false identity, imprisoning an elderly woman, Evelyn Baker, and using her house as a hideout. Drew is obsessed with building a false reality. He fabricates a loving family, a sick mother, and dreams of marriage and fatherhood with Freda, whom he increasingly manipulates and isolates. In a disturbing twist, he even claims to be planning a future with her and a child, echoing his delusions of a perfect domestic life. As Freda uncovers the truth about his lies and the real nature of his intentions, she must find a way to escape yet again, this time not just from prison walls but from a twisted captor who has made her part of his fantasy. Meanwhile, the police are on Freda's trail, believing her to be a killer and Drew to be a victim. However, one detective, James, starts to dig deeper. With the help of reporter Bianca Berry, he uncovers inconsistencies in Drew's story. A supposed orphan, Drew has no verifiable history, no school records, and no family ties. As the investigation deepens, they discover the truth about Evelyn Baker's disappearance. Her neighbors confirm she hadn't been seen in months and she had no children. Drew had assumed the role of her grandson after her husband died, slowly taking control of her life until she became a prisoner in her own home. Freda's growing awareness of Drew's deception leads to a dramatic confrontation. As Detective James closes in, Freda finds herself holding a gun, caught between her instinct to kill and her desire to finally do the right thing. Drew taunts her, claiming to have saved her, to have given her purpose, while still attempting to manipulate her into staying. But Freda, stronger than she realizes, begins to see through the lies. James pleads with her, urging her to trust him and surrender. He reminds her she's not a cold-blooded killer and that she can still be reunited with her sister Kendall. In a pivotal moment, James shows Freda a photo of Kendall, now grown and strong. That image becomes the turning point. Freda, overwhelmed by emotion and hope, gives up the gun. Drew, still defiant and delusional, attempts to maintain control, but it's too late. His lies have caught up to him and justice is coming. Evelyn Baker is found dead and Drew is implicated in her death, exposing his disturbing obsession and history of manipulation. Freda turns herself in and is granted a new trial after the truth about her father's long-standing abuse is revealed. The public perception shifts as people begin to see Freda not as a criminal but as a survivor who was punished for protecting her sister. The media, once eager to paint her as a villain, now questions the system that failed her. Freda's cooperation in the Drew Calder case also gives her credibility and a new chance at freedom. The story ends not with triumph but with a quiet resolution. Freda may finally have the chance to reclaim her life, but the trauma she carries is not easily left behind. The final scenes show her awaiting trial, supported by those who now believe her, including Detective James. Her journey from hunted fugitive to survivor seeking justice highlights the complex layers of truth and the dangers of assuming guilt based on appearances. This movie is more than a crime thriller. It's a story about trauma, manipulation, identity, and the longing for redemption. It challenges the viewer to reconsider what justice looks like and how often the system fails those it was meant to protect. Freda Maxwell's story is one of resilience, hard truths, and the possibility of healing even when the world has tried to strip it away. If you enjoy watching this video, then subscribe to Angel Recaps for the latest movies explanation.